Right, I hope everyone's had a wonderful New Year's so far. I cannot believe we're already 4 days into the New Year's, but the good news is we all have a plan going into it, and we are going to keep executing it every week. And I'm super proud of y'all. I've been seeing y'all's workouts, seeing y'all's meal plans, seeing all of y'all's great success this week. And really, that's what this is all about. It's just about showing up. It's about just taking that time to really go after this plan that we've created together. And, like y'all been doing, reaching out if you have any questions, reaching out for things, please reach out to me. Like, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you through the next 6 weeks so we can get you to the goals that we laid out last time on our call. And today is going to be a really fun call because I'm going to do a deep dive in nutrition, which we all know is my strong suit. That is the name of the game for me is nutrition is a huge part of weight loss and just this journey in general because it really is what shapes our body and not only makes our body, but fuels our body, makes us have a positive relationship with it because more times than not, we have grown up in a society where you're not supposed to eat these things, you're not supposed to eat these things, things are supposed to be restricted in order to lose weight. And so we're trying to completely eradicate that way of thinking and think, we can create a healthy relationship with food, but we just got to understand it. We got to understand how our body functions with it. We just have to understand how we are supposed to just cohesively learn to have a good relationship with it. So we are at the top of the hour. Let us go ahead and get started today. And if anyone has any questions, we are going to do a Q&A at the very end of our call today. But if you have any questions throughout, just send them in the chat and I will be there to help. Raise a hand. We are here to work and be live together. Okay. So like I said, today we're going to do a little overview over nutrition. We're actually going to do, and I sent this in our email this morning, I'm going to walk y'all through the step-by-step process of really creating the macros so that when you start really pulling all this together, you can track them in MyFitnessPal. You can make sure that you have the appropriate macros for whatever goal you have. And that way you know the science, right? Because everything that we do here in my world is a formula-based science. It's not just something I just made up one day. I am using a formula for how to lose weight, how many calories to burn, how many macros to be eating every day. That's how I've been able to achieve the body I've achieved and help other people and women be able to do the same. So we're going to get very specific on your macros and you're going to do it with me. And then just some meal plan strategies. I am a big meal prepper. It has really guided and made it very easy for me to show up for my goals. I do not allow my excuses to get in the way. I meal prep for that purpose. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to just kind of go through a dive of what wellness really means, right? Because it's not just about fitness, not just about nutrition. It's about the whole combination of your mindset, your body, having to connect all those pieces because a lot of the times we could have the perfect workout routine, but our mindset is still in that phase of we're never going to achieve the body we want to achieve. You're never going to commit. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to show up. So a lot of what wellness is actually really connecting your mind, your body, your soul to all be cohesive enough to align to the same goal. And I always like to describe wellness as like a big pillar, and you have your fitness, your nutrition, your mindset, your spirituality, all those hold up the pillar. So you can imagine if one is a little lower, like your mindset, you're not working on it as much, you're not being conscious about what you're thinking about, the pillar might fall. So we want to make sure that we have a strong pillar. We have everything is in alignment. So I always like to just use that caveat that wellness also is about your mental clarity, your emotional resilience, how you show up, emotionally to situations, having meaningful social connections. It's very important that you have a great circle around you that you can call whenever you need to, that you can share the things that you're working on, that they can encourage you when you're doing a new goal and saying, let's go, like you have a new goal, I'm here to support you. Very important. And basically, all we're doing is working together to create a very vibrant and balanced life. And we all know how I love the word balance. Balance is key. And I was just talking to one of my one-on-one clients the other week about this because she was telling me, basically, she had took off like a day from the gym and she was just like, Tara, I just felt like I really needed it. I've been pushing myself. I've been going really hard and she's had great success. And I told her, I was like, this is when real life happens. And here's the difference, right, between skipping your workout and taking a rest day. When you've been hitting your goals, when you've been meal prepping, when you've been showing up to the gym, when you've been doing the things you need to do, and let's say one day your body is just beat, it's just burnt out, it just needs a day off, that's when it's okay to just kind of say, you know what? My body, I'm going to listen to my body. Balance is important. Let's take the day off and we'll come back harder the next workout. The difference between that and skipping the workout is you don't feel like going, you don't have the motivation, the energy. You think, oh, I'll just go tomorrow. So that's what we want to break. We want to go to this level of like recognizing when your body needs a break, being in tune with your body, your wellness, and deciding that when you do take that day off, the next time you come back, you're going to go even harder. This way, when you skip it, you're more likely to keep skipping it, right? You're like, oh, well, I'll go next week. Well, it's the middle of the month. Why don't we start the end of the month? So we have to train our brains to start getting in that habit of like, no matter what, this is a practice, right? Workouts, it is a practice to show up. It's not just hitting your workouts, it is actively practicing showing up for your workouts every single day and committing to that and not just stopping, but restarting every time you need. I'm a great example of this too. I had just gone back to Austin, so I took a couple days off from the gym. And then the minute I got back, I was like, boom, right back on my plan because it was like, oh, I feel pumped up. I feel excited. And the best part about wellness is that when you really start enjoying what you're doing, then it's not as hard to continue to show up. Um, so, as the last statement says, true wellness is sustainable. Okay. It's about creating a consistent and realistic routine that nurtures your whole being and empowers you to thrive. So, again, we're all working for sustainability. My goal with this 6 week challenge wasn't to load you up in the first week with 1,000 things to do for you to be like, this is not gonna, this is too much, Tara. I got a life, I got a job, I got to get back to work. I don't need to be doing all these different things. That's why I was like, hey, let's set the plan. Let's set the intention. Let's get your workouts they're already pre there. I've generated them for you. All you got to do is execute, log your meals. Next week, we'll do a deeper dive. So every week, I want you to know in these calls, my goal is to get deeper and deeper. We want to start here and we want to go, all right, you've nailed that. Let's keep going. So again, just remembering that we're creating a lifestyle here, and my goal with you leaving the challenge is that you've created such a sustainable lifestyle that you get to continue it after. You know yourself, you got your habits down, you believe in yourself, you've got the right tools to lead you to success, and this challenge is your way of having me to be like, hey, you're doing the right things and you're seeing that success and you're being accountable. You've got the formula for what you need. Okay. So, some common mistakes that we've kind of already talked about, but I love to re-bring them to the surface because we're human and we forget sometimes, right? We forget how our brains work. So, one mistake I always call out is we don't need to wait to be motivated, right? That's why your workouts, I told y'all, tell me and figure out the time that works best for you because for me, I'm a morning workout person because I don't like to wait to be motivated later in the day. I'm like, I wake up and I'm like half awake and I'm like, let's go to the gym. Let's do it. We're tired. We may not want to be here, but let's go to the gym. So it's important to stop waiting to be motivated. You should not be motivated at all. This is a true practice and discipline. Okay. The method of trying to be perfect means you always start over. That's what I was saying just a little bit ago. It's okay to have times where you're like, you know what, let's move the workout to tomorrow. Today I'm slammed with work and I'd rather just do it tomorrow because you're going to show up versus skipping it all together and you're trying to be perfect and dead on. Look, we're just trying to make sure we have a system that you don't keep starting over. And then ignoring your mental and emotional wellness. I said this a little bit ago, but I want to rehash this one because there was a time when I was working two jobs as a personal trainer and a nutritionist in Texas, and my body looked great. I was eating, but I was working 60 plus hours a week, and I was completely ignoring my mental health. And once I left that job and I did something else, I had a period of like, whoa. I'm burnt out. Like I really didn't focus on my emotional well-being, my nervous system. I didn't check in with myself. So it goes back to the statement of the pillars. Wellness really does have to have everything aligned in the same place, or else you're going to feel that lack. And then you kind of start thinking, what am I doing wrong? I'm working out, I'm doing this. And it was a great realistic realization for me. It's actually when I really started investing in my wellness at that point, because I was like, wow, I had everything. And I completely just didn't connect with myself. I didn't know what I was working towards. I was just work, 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 life, life, life. And I realized that that wasn't sustainable for me and my well-being as a wellness, living a wellness lifestyle. And it's realizing that breakthroughs come when you realize that wellness, it's not a destination. It is a daily commitment, which is, I love that. I don't know about y'all, but I love the idea that, we always like finish lines, right? It's always like you get to the goal weight, you get to the finish line, you achieve the marathon, you get to here. But for me, I love the idea that I get to continue to get better. There's no end to the possibility of how I can grow as a person. There's no end to the limitations I hold that I can show up and I can do better every day and I can commit to something new. And I was telling this to my client as well. We were talking about habits, right? I gave y'all a habit to track every week. And I was talking through her habits that we have because we have about 6 things that I'm like, hey, make sure we got all these things down. You're doing good. And I was like, remember when we started, you just had one. And now you've committed so much that these different habits, it's easy, right? Like you're reading, you're doing your water, you got your walks in, you're making sure you're eating at every single meal. Like that's what really it means to trust yourself and to build a system that works and just recognizing, which it may not be fun to hear. I think I said this last week that there is no destination sometimes. Yes, you'll get to your goal weight, but in the terms of like maintaining our habits, that's why we want to enjoy it. That's why we want to have that fun side of it of like, oh, this is a lifestyle. Like, this is my wellness. This is not just about being on a diet and on a restrictive plan, because we don't use those words here. We like to think about wellness as something that gets to make you better. And who doesn't like that? All right, let's switch gears and let's get into our nutrition. So, I just want to go through a couple different things when we're thinking about nutrition because, again, I do feel personally like it's the biggest hurdle when it comes to achieving a physical body or a dream body of that you're working towards. It's very difficult for nutrition because sometimes we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how much to eat, how little to eat, when to eat. We overcomplicate it and then we end up not doing anything. We have a very restrictive mindset because it just goes with hand in hand, diet restriction, right? We think remove, reduce, cut, leave behind. But we know in the grand scheme of things, you can still enjoy things here and there. We're just trying to add more fueling food in and make it taste good, right? I always tell y'all I don't eat bland food. I don't eat food I don't like. Every time I meal prep, I truly enjoy it. I truly enjoy it. So a couple things we're going to go over. We are not doing fad diets anymore, especially here. We just need some clarity mixed in with some freedom to make a really beautiful scheme of enjoying eating healthy food. I call it having a positive affliction towards food versus looking at food as something that's like, oh, you know what? It's time to get back on the plan. All right, we got to cut everything out. No more happy hours, no more date nights, no more, pizza nights. That's just not like how our world works at all. So we don't need to create this restrictive diet because again, we are trying to make a lifestyle. And one day you're going to look and be like, man, I really enjoy eating these foods. It feels good, right? There's some positive gratification when you're eating healthy food and you enjoy what you're eating, you enjoy the process of it, and then you're like, why did I ever was afraid of this before, like I can enjoy the foods I want to eat, but I really enjoy eating these healthy foods. So it's the fuel versus restriction mindset, aiming for the aspect of having more energy versus just the way you look. Because I think that changed it for me when I went to school for nutrition. I really started learning the ins and outs of what food does for our body throughout the lifespan of our life. And so it changed my mind to look at food as just a tool for weight loss, as a means of being the absolute best, healthiest, fueled version of myself. And so I started looking at food as like vegetables and fruits and fiber and things that are going to help my digestive and my gut health so I'm not breaking out or my skin is really, clear or making sure I'm not bloated. So I'm focusing on these different foods that help with that or eating more carrots for my skin. So I think it changes a lot when you look at food as something much bigger than just a means and a tool. You look at it as a way of really getting the best out of your life. If you wake up and you're immediately tired and you're like, I need my coffee, I will not survive the morning without my coffee, and you get crashes all day long where your energy just tanks, and then you have another coffee, and the energy tanks, and then you get to 5 p.m. and you're like, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym because your energy is just tanking all day. That's a clear indication of sign that your cortisol, your body's just how it releases stress hormone, it's not flatlined, it's like this. And that also happens when you have sugary food in the morning with no protein, no, healthy fats. It's because your blood sugar spikes and then it comes down and then it's like, "Ugh, I'm tired, I feel weak, I need a kick of something," and then you get something and then you drop back down. So when I think about nutrition and all these healthy foods that I eat, I'm like, I just want my energy to be flatlined. I've gotten to a point where I have coffee every now and then, but I worked really hard in 2025 to almost remove coffee from my life because I was too dependent on it. And I was like, we gotta start sleeping better. We gotta start eating better foods that support our body. And we've got to make sure we're doing other things like drinking matcha, green tea, working out in the morning. And it served me pretty well. So if you're also on that train of like, I don't want to keep waking up tired. I don't want my body to feel so achy all the time. I'm just tired of this. Food is the best way to start working on that, to go a step further, getting your blood work done, seeing if you're deficient in anything, if you're going through any cycles in your life, then of course getting the guidance from a specialist who can help with like regulating that. But more times than not, we can feed our body back to health. It's really cool. It's something that I do on a daily basis, and that's what's fun about nutrition is that it's healing. So that's a huge part of it. And then I really want y'all just to think about like three simple things that I think about: protein, fiber, more whole foods. Those to me, like fats and carbs, they're all very important, vitamins, minerals, but there's so many things to think about. And again, the number one reason why we kind of psych ourselves out and understand nutrition is like it's too overwhelming, just like anything we don't know about. It's overwhelming to think, okay, wow, how am I supposed to eat 300 milligrams of vitamin C plus 120 grams of carbs? Like it's a lot to think about, and you can totally get down to that level. But what I want you to focus on is your daily protein consumption because that's going to be what's going to sustain your body building muscle while also helping your metabolism speed up so it's burning calories, and it's going to help with your satiation, your hunger. It's going to make sure your body's satiated. Fats do that as well, but protein, we love protein. And so protein is huge. And we're going to go through how many proteins you should eat a day. I'm going to have y'all really track proteins this week because I want to make sure we are nailing proteins, and then we can work on the other carbs and fats we fluctuate. But for me, proteins are the star of the show. And then fiber. We all forget about fiber. I've been guilty of forgetting about fiber, but fiber is digestion, and I'm gonna go TMI on y'all, maybe, but we should be using the restroom 1 to 2 times a day regularly, and I'm talking Snickers bars, not like Cocoa Puffs. So we want to make sure we are having really good digestive systems every day, and our digestive is going to tell us a lot about how our body's functioning on the inside. If we're not going regularly, if it's not one way or the other, then something needs to be cleaned up in our diet. So fiber is really important. There's a really good estimate about 20, 30 grams a day, but if you're eating a lot of fibrous foods like me, like I'm just like, I think I got it good because my system's working well. And there's whole foods, right? We're just trying to eat more whole foods. We're just trying to eat foods that you buy at the store, you prepare at home, you have on hand, and we're not trying to be perfect. That's why I always tell y'all, like, get in this mindset of balance. But if you're having a hard time with the word balance and the 80/20 rule, just think, I want to be eating more of my foods at home during the week. That's a great way to start. It's just like, I got to work every day. Why not have a system in place to eat more whole foods? The weekends will come, but that's a good place to start incorporating them. And just being mindful, mindful eating is super important to, again, enjoy what you're doing. I've gotten to a point with my meal preps that I look up recipes, I reuse recipes, I use my cookbook a lot of the times because I made those recipes with the intention of making healthy food taste good and just removing guilt. We've all have guilt towards how we eat, how we look at food. And so my biggest tip is just to always remove any guilt that you feel. And if you get overwhelmed, just know that it's a lot to work through. Nutrition, it's a big part of this. It's a big part of our lives. Even if you're not on a health journey, it's still a huge part of all of our lives. And I personally feel like there wasn't enough education in, K through 12 for anybody, because if there was, then maybe we wouldn't have such epidemics going on and so many high rates of heart disease and all these chronic things. And now I'm getting too sciencey, but it's real. I've lived it, right? I've lived a life where I used to eat takeout like 3 years ago. I'd eat takeout like every night. Just started working remote. I was eating out all the time and like I felt it, I just felt really like full. I felt really bloated. My skin was breaking out. My body wasn't feeling good. I wasn't moving right. And then I kind of reversed that. I started making food at home again, most of the time, eat out a couple times, and it feels great. Um, so I had this question here, and it's really probably meant for like the end, but I want you to really think about what's one way you can simplify your nutrition this week. Is it having a meal plan that just feels good for you? Is it just starting to track your protein? Is it just tracking your water? Is it just understanding what fibrous foods are, like what foods contain fiber? So that's going to help you in the long run to make sure you're hitting your goals. Just this is a good question. You can write it down. And I always suggest, I do this a lot when I do like workshops and stuff, is if there's a question, just make sure you write it down. You're going to get the replay later, but it's good to come back to, right? It's a good question to repeatedly ask yourself, what's one way you can simplify your nutrition this week? It's a very good question because, again, we don't want to overwhelm. We want to make sure with your nutrition that you are enjoying this. And so in the beginning, we take baby steps so that we create that fulfillment. All right, pen and paper time. So I sent y'all all of these, this long word jumble this morning in your morning email, but I really want to do a step-by-step process where we can really start understanding where you're at, how we're going to make sure that we are creating calories that work for you. And I have a pretty simple method. It's one that I've used quite often in the past. Again, I think every person is very specific. So formulas, I always, when I work one-on-one with clients, it's always like, what's your formula? What is it going to work for your body? Because I don't like to just give this generic, basic, okay, this is going to work for you. We've got to really understand you. So I always say with what I'm going to teach you, this is like the overall tracking system, but we can get very specific and say, let's say, what does moderately active mean? We're going to get onto all that so you can think that this is general, but don't like take the numbers and just be like, this is my number, right? We can play around with it and we can talk afterwards too, like on a text of like, hey, I think these are my numbers. You just want to like triple check and just make sure I got it right. This is a good starting point though. This is a great tool to use at any point in your journey. So what I want you to do, if you have your phone out or you have a pen and paper, let's just kind of get some numbers rolling. And if you have questions throughout, add to the chat, let me know. Or you can text me after, like I said. So we're gonna have your body weight right now. And I want you to look at this less active, moderately active, and very active scale here. So for less active, we're going to say that's like 2 days to 0 days of working out. And these are mainly brisk walks. They're not very high intensity. They're just moving your body in some capacity. So for the girls who are here, these are not you. You are the moderately active. You're working out 3 to 4 times a week. We're doing 3 strength training days and we're doing a cardio day. So we are getting a good moderate activity. And then a very active would be somebody who's probably running like a bodybuilder, someone who's working out 5, 6 times a week, who are just on a different level. And we don't have to be very active. We are, again, here to create a lifestyle. So moderately active. So what I would do is go ahead and take your body weight, multiply that by 13. And again, this is just going to be like what I call like your maintenance calories, right? They may seem very high. You're going to be like, Tara, whoa, I can't eat. Why would I eat all these calories? Like that's a crazy assumption of you to think that I'm gonna, like you're telling me to eat all these, but I'm trying to diet down. These are a rough draft of your maintenance. So what we call maintenance is called your maintenance when you're just maintaining where you're at. So in a calorie deficit, you usually are in a deficit of 3 to 500 calories. So we take that number and we usually subtract it by 300 to start. 500 is a very big jump. It's a lot to jump and we don't need to do that. So what I would say is once you get your total calories, analyze it and see kind of comparison if you've already started tracking, kind of see where we're at. But I would say a good starting point is to at least start decreasing at least 200 calories from that number to be in a deficit. If you are trying to lose weight, that's the scheme of it, okay? So take your weight, multiply it by 13. That number is right there. And I would try to at least subtract 200 from that. And that is going to be where we're at for your starting macros. Again, we have a great scale to be able to lose, to decrease that. But again, if you were eating 1950 calories for 7 months and I hop on here and I'm like, all right, time to drop to 1400. That's very difficult for anybody, and that's what we call unsustainable because you're doing this huge jump, and we can meet in the middle and just say, hey, let's start here. If you nail it, you feel good, you're losing weight, you got your hungers are in control. Let's drop another 100. You're only going to see more success. So this is going to be our calories. And again, I would just write this down. I never want you to be super strict about them because, again, we're still learning your body. We're doing a lot of testing throughout the challenge. So, what I want you to think from this point to the very end is, okay, I've got my calories. Let's start plugging them in and let's start checking our weight, on a week to week basis and making sure if you do check your weight, this is very important, that you are 100% on our plan. Because a lot of times when if we do weigh ourselves on a week to week basis, and let's say we go out for happy hour one night. Let's say one night we had a pizza night, and let's say we missed a workout. We're going to take what that weight loss is and make it define the journey when in reality there was other things into play. So I like to always say when you're analyzing, you're getting your data in, make sure you're looking at a span where you're like, okay, this is me doing everything I need to do. I hit my workouts, I got my water in. Yes, I had a date night, but that's one meal out of all these other meals. I had maybe a cookie at brunch, but that's fine. We're talking the grand scheme of it all, making sure we're hitting everything we need to hit on our plan. These are what's going to help you give you a guideline of like, well, I'll just keep repeating that and I'll keep going down. And that's how we make sure we're creating a plan that's actually going to work and not just going to fizzle you out. So this is our calories. Let's go ahead and move on to our macros. And again, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by this. Again, these are just kind of some guidelines. And the one I want to focus on today is your protein. This is the one I really want to focus on because your carbs and your fats, I have an example here where I kind of just measured out what like 40 to 45% of your carbs are, 25% of your fats, and then making sure that we're getting like a zero point 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per body weight. So if we're using the previous example, you can see here that we found that somebody who weighs 150 pounds, about 1950 calories. So then we skip over here. For protein, we're aiming to have zero point 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's what I do. I do a gram of 1 gram per body, ooh, mouthful, 1 gram per pound of body weight for my protein intake, and that has worked and served for me for a year. So for you, you might want to just start the zero point 0.7, just kind of getting that habit of like, okay, man, we got to start upping our protein. That's why last week my goal for y'all was 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. That gives you a good basis to say, let's say your macros are around 100. That's 4 meals, 25 grams. That's your 100. So for this, what I would say is take your body weight, times it by zero point 0.7, see where you're at, do the same thing with 1 gram. You have that parameter. We're going to start in the bottom line one. We're going to start this one right here. We're going to start the one that's more attainable, and that's your goal for this week. That is your goal for the week. You're going to be tracking that protein in MyFitnessPal, which I'm going to give you another slide to give you examples of that. But we're going to make sure we're tracking your protein to make sure you have what we call the really important one, moving in action. And like I said, if that's even hard to reach, like let's say your zero point 0.7 is still like you're like, Tara, that's like double of what I'm doing. You can say start with like at least 100. I know it sounds like a lot, but 4 times a day, 25 grams, more times than not, you can find, there's so many things that just add up in protein. A protein shake's probably going to get you 20. I have a protein bar that's 20. A 5 ounce piece of chicken is about 28. 4 ounces of meat of ground beef is going to be like 25, 26. So you see, all you really need is one serving of one protein and you should be good. But that's your number one goal this week, tracking your protein in MyFitnessPal, making sure we're getting that right amount. And then for your carbs and fats, there is a typical ratio, about 40 to 45% of your calories should come from carbs. And we're talking healthy carbs, right? And sustainable and non-sustainable, unsustainable and sustainable, either one work, but we're talking about like sweet potatoes, rice, protein pasta, fruits and vegetables hold a lot of carbs in them, surprisingly. So we're talking about those. And so if you want to start getting specific, you can take your total calories. So if we use the example 1950, times it by zero point 0.4. That's going to roughly give you how many calories. And then I should have wrote this, but there are 4 calories and 1 gram of carb. And the same thing for protein. There is 4 calories per 1 gram of protein and carbs. So when you're trying to figure out, okay, Tara, I have 600 calories. Now, what does that equate to in grams? For carbs and proteins, that's four. Okay, so that's how you can at least get an estimate, but we can focus on that. If you feel good, go ahead and start doing it. But again, protein is going to be the main focus of this week. Same thing with fats. You can take that total amount, that 1950, times it by 25.2530, and then fats, actually, they are different than the other ones. It's actually 9 grams per calorie. It's a little heavier there. So 9 grams of calories for fats, and then 4 grams per 4 calorie, 1 gram per 4 calories for carbs and protein. Oop, I think my show lost here. Let me just get my screen back on. 1 second. That's how we know we're live. Because we had a malfunction. Let me see if I can unplug it. Let's see if we can get ourselves reconnected. But this is a good time to just start looking at the numbers and just making sure you got everything. I gotta make sure the computer, just make sure we got it thing up and running. Okay, there we go. We're gonna be good. Um, let's see, it took me away. Where did I go? Okay. And we're back. Sorry about that brief intermission, but again, that's how we know we're live, right? So here's just some example macro breakdowns to the 1950 calories. You may look at the carbs and think that's really high. Again, that's where we play around with. And this is where I always say carbs are the ones you can play around with. Like you can start dropping them, kind of seeing how it feels, how it looks. But again, we're just trying to create a very balanced and realistic intake that supports your workouts and it's going to support fat loss without completely burning you out on this process. And then MyFitnessPal, if you are not for there we go. If you're not familiar with MyFitnessPal, it is an app that is my favorite for tracking. I think over the years they've started to charge a little bit, which I'm not 100% about, but I will check. But it is a great tool for tracking your meals, for setting your goals, and it just keeps you very accountable. I'm somebody who I still track. I track my proteins. I just make sure I'm eating. So I know most of the time what I'm getting, but a large part of this journey, especially with this challenge, is that you're keeping accountable to me by tracking your workouts, having your meal in there. But a lot of this is teaching you to be accountable to yourself, to be checking in, taking 3 seconds out of your day to be like, what are my macros at? And not being obsessive over it because we're not going to be obsessive. We're just being aware, right? There's a difference between obsessing and just being aware of what you're doing. So, for MyFitnessPal, when you download it, you can set your goals, and this is where you'll enter in your calories and your macros that we just created together. So this is kind of the perfect plan of action. You get your calories, you get your macros, you start tracking it, and then you start entering in meals, and you start really looking at, oh wow, that actually has really good. I'm getting my protein in by by 4 p.m. I've got my macros in. My protein looks good and it just keeps you accountable. And it gives you what I like to say is it gives you data, right? When you have a really good week where maybe you saw weight loss, maybe you lost 2 pounds in 1 week and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? You go back on your MyFitnessPal and you say, that's what I did. Let's just do it again. And another big thing I like to think about and just tracking without stress is logging food before or after a meal, just not constantly having to be on there. If it helps, you can do it 1 time a day. I'm somebody where I usually do it like sometime midday when I'm just kind of, instead of scrolling on my phone, I go and I grab my MyFitnessPal and I'm like, okay, how can I just make sure that I've got everything logged up to this point, and then it's easy to log the rest of the day. And most of the stuff, the good thing about the app is there's a scanner so you can scan the back of food, and if you've already tracked things before it's just going to be in your recent. So most of the time I'm just like boom 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 boom. Takes me like 2 minutes. It's so easy. And again, we're not going for perfection. I'm not expecting y'all to leave this call and say we are going to be tracking every single calorie of every single day. Like that's just not realistic, and I understand. I also don't feel like that's realistic. What I think is realistic is that this is new for you. This is if this is the first time you've done it, this is a couple times you've done it before. Track your protein, track your meals, and then the good thing too in the app, it can actually what's the word? It can be integrated into Everfit. So you think you're like, great, now I gotta track in two places, Tara. Like, why would I be able to do that? Nope, you just got to make sure in the MyFitnessPal, there's a section where it's like integration and you can integrate EverFit. So boom, It's all going to be in one place. So it's actually like works really well. So again, we are looking for consistency, not perfection, which is going to help a lot in the grand scheme of it all. Let me just make sure. Oh, I guess I moved this one. This one should have been step three, but we'll play with it anyways. So I want to talk about how to build macro-friendly meals. So we've already really touched base on it, but to be very bland and very straightforward, protein, carb, fat, fruits and vegetable, one on the plate. It's really can be that simple. And you may look at this and be like, oh, that seems too easy. How could I do that? It's really starting to find meals that incorporate all, and most meals have them that are full meals, right? Like I have a couple recipes where there is carbs, there is protein, there is veggies. It's all into one big bowl. I love bowls. If you see me a lot, you see, make sweet potato ground beef bowls with like squash and zucchini, and then I throw some hot sauce in there. Sometimes I put cheese on there. It just depends, but my protein is the ground beef, my carb is the sweet potato, my fat is coming from the ground beef as well, and then I just have some extra veggies that I'm throwing in there. So it really does can be this easy. I like to use this framework of just get one of each, and really your protein should be the star of the show. So making sure your protein at least is like the majority of the plate, fruits and vegetables are a big part, and then your carbs are kind of like a third of the plate. But again, I just want to be easy for y'all. And the best way to make sure you're getting all three is when you're making meals, just make sure they have one of everything and just finding carbs that you enjoy, right? If you don't like sweet potatoes, I'm not going to force you to eat them. I just recently, in the last couple of years, started liking them. So big win for me. It was a big goal of mine. So we now love sweet potatoes. But if you're more of a rice person or protein pasta person, then perfect. Add vegetables, add fruits and vegetables to everything if you can. Like it seriously is the powerhouse of losing weight is just including more fruits and vegetables. It's just important for our bodies in general. So, to have a very healthy lifestyle, it's just important to have fruits and vegetables. So that's just a good parameter. And like I said, with a lot of meals that I post on my page or meals that y'all been posting have all created this, but just creating that mindset of like I need protein, carb, fat, and mostly whole foods, you're going to be on track for the right macros. Okay. And that is what I had for y'all. I know that was about 35 minutes of conversation. I did want to kind of go back to the top and just reiterate that it's New Year's, guys. Like we are in New Year's. The great thing is y'all are here. We have this plan. You have this safe place to learn, to absorb, to really understand yourself and how we're going to create this lifestyle with fitness, with nutrition, with mindset. Next week, we're going to really start drilling in on discipline. Week three is a really good time where our minds are like, all right, I'm getting tired of this. Are we done yet? And that's when we have to be like, we are not done. We're not even close, but we want to start creating that positive affliction with what we're doing, creating really fun habits with discipline. So we're going to really get into that next week with our call. This week, it's going to be another week in the books. You're going to be tracking your protein. You're going to be doing your workouts. I'm so proud of y'all for doing your workouts. They've all been amazing. I love all the feedback of like, hey, I've done this and I'm going to do this. And I'm like, or I wasn't able to get this in, but I'm going to do it next time. It's like, yes, right? These workouts are created for you. If you're not able to do it all at 100% pace, that's okay. Do what you can. Push yourself to your absolute limit. And we can all, I can see your heart rate, all those different things. So like I know y'all are all working hard. And then in a couple weeks, this is the fun part. You're going to look back and be like, that workout is now kind of easy. I'm going to add more to it. And then you can start, that's how you push yourself. You kind of make those strides and you start recognizing it when you're working out and you're like, I'm not as out of breath when I do those core exercises anymore. It's starting to work. I'm starting to build endurance. That's one piece of it. And then your nutrition, again, the biggest goal this week is just to track your protein and really start finding fun ways to make healthy food. I know it's not fun, right? It can feel like a chore. It can feel very heavy. But again, to make it really easy, nutrition is very important for us. So we've got to find ways to enjoy it, right? It's just like going to work. We don't all always enjoy going to work, but it's something we got to do. And so we got to find fun ways to enjoy that. So with nutrition, again, just remembering to really expand yourself. Find new meals that excite you. If you are somebody who loves pasta dishes, start finding some recipes that include healthier versions of pasta dishes that have tons of veggies in there. They're using maybe a sauce to make at home, maybe a healthier sauce at the store, protein pasta. Like we can enjoy foods that are deemed unhealthy we just need to make them at home and have whole foods be the base, and it all of a sudden turns into a really nutrient dense meal. And if you have any other questions on meal plans or recipes that you're interested in, just let me know. I have tons in my books. But a big place to look is, any place you get inspired. For me, Pinterest is a good place. That's how I found a lot of my recipes throughout the last couple of years. My cookbook, I know everyone on the call has that, so thank you, everyone. So you've got that place for something quick, easy, and just tracking your protein. Just make it easy this week. And then for your mindset, just recognizing that we are 4 days into the New Year's, and you've already been doing this for a week. Like, that's so exciting. Like, most people are just now trying to conjure up, what am I doing for this New Year's? What's going on? It's already here. I'm still in Christmas mode, and you're already like a week in. I gotta make a plan. I've been tracking meals. I've got weekly calls with our coach. I've got I've got this support. I've got the accountability. I've got the tools. So really, this is a fun time because all we get to do is execute. We get to just stay accountable and just really keep this momentum going. I want to make sure every time we hop in a call, y'all feel my energy. You learn and gain so much, something new that you didn't know before, something new that's going to help you in the week. And like always, I always encourage if you'll have questions that come up throughout the week of like, man, I really want to understand what this means. Just message me and let me know, and we can throw it on here. That's why I had this Q&A. If there's any questions or anything that would provide more value to you, I am here, like I said, for these next 6 weeks to be your coach, to be your support, your accountability, to help you through this process. And whatever way I can make that easier, I am here to do. But I'm super proud of y'all. We're in a weekend, and it's Sunday. I always love Sundays. I do these calls Sunday evening. So we have this time of like, we went through the day, we're about to start the weekend, we're about to reset our mind. Let's get on a really good mindset shift to really get the best out of this week. So I know we're about 40 minutes in, but I want to stop in the chat. If there's any questions, I don't have my phone on me, unfortunately. It's charging in the other room. So if you sent me a message, I apologize. I don't have that, but let's see here. I see Julie has raised her hand. Let me see how I can get you to talk. Webinars are kind of new for me. Let's see how I can get you to talk. Or if you want to add your question in the chat, that is always helpful. But I'm trying to see. Let's see here. If you, everyone, everyone, if you want to, if you have a question, oh, here we go. Let's see. Q&A. Oh, no worries. Okay, that's how this works too. Perfect. Okay, well, if there are any questions, just let me know. Again, I'm just here to provide value for y'all and to keep these calls going with lots of good energy. And again, I'm just really proud of y'all. But yeah, if there's no more questions for today, then I will give y'all a little bit of time back. Just reread your emails, reread the notes we made today. Message me if you need any recipes or other tips for meal prepping. Like I said, with meal prepping, it's really the best thing to do and just making meals that taste good and meals that you're going to eat throughout the week. And sometimes for some of my clients and even me, I make multiple different types of meals, like for 3-day splits, because some days I don't want to eat the same thing 5 times. I want to eat it 3 times and eat something else 3 times. So that could be a good strategy, just having 2 lunch meals already prepared so that you can switch between and you're not wasting food because you're going to eat them. But those are good ways to just make sure you're eating your meals. And then, yeah, I'll be checking in with y'all. You have your workout set for the week. You've got your meal plans, your protein goals, get your Mind Fitness Pal set up, and just really get your mind into a good space of being proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself for committing to this. Be proud of yourself for joining these calls. Be proud of yourself for showing up every week and being excited. That's what we want to be, and we want to hold that energy for a while. That's the key, is to enjoy this. And I hope y'all are enjoying this, and I hope you're getting value. And I appreciate all of y'all. So let me know if y'all have questions. And I am excited for this next week. Let's have a great week, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We'll talk next time.